Hooray. It's live time. And we're even a few minutes early. So, who knows? I may be just talking to myself. No, somebody's here watching. Hooray. Hello, somebody. Welcome to another Wine Shark Wednesday with your host, Wine Shark. It's been another interesting week, I must say. It has lots going on, interesting stories in the wine world. Tragedy strikes, however. Today, I learned there were 12,000 gallons of Templeton rye bourbon, or rye whiskey rather, was lost in a trucking accident. A moment of silence for the bottles, their contents, and the now highly flammable but spicy, tasty portion of that highway. Be a whole kind of a thing right there. Yeah, hope everybody else is having an excellent week. Wait a minute for folks to kind of show up and get going because, well, we're in no rush, I suppose. I've got some kind of winding up to a rant today. It's been one of those writing days. So not necessarily an educational topic per se, but a wine shark day. Also attended a very cool webinar this week from Mike McAllowitz on serve selling and, talking about being of service to your customers. And really that is the thing that we do. And how much I truly embrace that idea, the idea that I work in a service industry and while it is also a luxury and fun thing, it is an interesting dichotomy of place. So I'm very excited to kind of talk about some of those things later on. But we're also other upcoming and fun things. We're working on growing, right? We got to get more people out there to find out and know about WineShark and whatnot. So I've been doing my marketing and research homework, and I've been working on some advertising programs and some things. But some of the ideas of things I've been thinking about. We're going to run an online contest, basically just a simple sign up and registration, and basically for doing some shares and some whatnot, you'll get entries into basically a free online private tasting. So a $200 value for up to you and 10 connections. And I'll do a customized wine tasting for you and your friends, which will be kind of cool. So look for the details of that coming up here soon. I've been noodling on the mechanics and trying to figure out how to make it all go in the right way. So, and then of course too, how to make it work on my end, because obviously wine can't be included in the show, but obviously we can do it just like we do with the regular shows, where we can propose up a list, make sure everybody has a chance to do their purchasing or deliveries, and go from there. So be perfectly on. Well, hello there, Barbara, and hello there, Donna. Welcome back to Wine Shark Wednesday. So yeah, we were just getting started. We're just kind of talking about news of the week and things that are upcoming. Oh yeah, it definitely tastes like a Wednesday. I like that. We're gonna be Brick Vine today's grocery store grab. We'll get to in just a little while. I've poured myself a glass in a preemptive mode because that's how we work it. So, anyway, let's get rolling. We talked about what's new, kind of things going on, and that's all good. We had an excellent time for our wine and cheese tasting last week, and we're going to be doing Pinot Noir this week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited about that. In fact, actually, because I've been in Pinot Noir headspace all week, then that's why the grocery store grab today is also a Pinot Noir. So today we're going to talk about wine stereotypes and their kind of set the level and set the score on debunking some of this stuff, just kind of my take on stuff, kind of putting my line in the sand, foot in the ground, name on the stamp, however you want to say so when it comes to some of these, what I would call mostly negative ideas in the industry, some things that I want you guys to be aware of, some things that I want you guys to know that I'm aware of, and how I approach them, and why, again, a lot more about what WineShark is about, because realizing that as we try and grow this thing, the thing that differentiates me from anybody else out there is the me in the equation, and the kind of the model that we build around what we educate and teach and how we go about it. So With that, I wanted to talk and start at the concept of grocery versus luxury. There's a little an axiom that I believe in. The wine should be a grocery, not a luxury. And that's an interesting take on a concept, and something that I had a very interesting conversation after one of the wine tastings not too long ago regarding the luxury perception that wine has fostered throughout its say through modern wine history throughout the last say 200 years or so. Well, wine is thousands of years old. The idea of fine wine as we know it today is very much cultivated in the last just few hundred years, and there's an interesting double-edged sword that comes along with that. When I got into wine, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to learn about it because it was intriguing. It was fancy. It was seen as elegant, and therefore it intrigued me at that level of this is something I want to be an expert in, something I want to learn well about. It's also part of the part and parlance of kind of that cultural kind of swagger that comes along with understanding it and not being intimidated by wine. A lot of people have that perception that wine can be an intimidating and frightening experience, or at least anxiety producing experience. And that was one of the things that triggered my memories very early about just the very reason why I wanted to get involved in wine and what I wanted to do in the world of wine comparatively to what I was seeing in a lot of the education materials, or even just in the general idea of of how wine is perceived and how wine is experienced. Because it's real easy to get trapped in the luxury thing. The to quote Mark Stone's character uh, in Rock and Rolla, everybody likes a good life, and there's a real desire to be a part of that. And if you think about the wine world in America, broadly speaking, we have this weird gap. We are living in a wonderful age of access. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic to be able to. I mean, I live in a fairly decent sized U.S. city, but I've got access to some pretty awesome wines, and especially due to the internet, most people we can order wines from all over the world and get some pretty interesting options delivered to your door. Um, and you look at the quality spectrum that we have. I mean, I can go into my local wine shop and spend anywhere from $3 a bottle to $3,000 a bottle, all in the same store experience. That's pretty remarkable. I was thinking about other businesses where that sort of price disparity is true, and the thing I keep coming back to kind of is that luxury thing. Jewelry store is probably the closest I can think of, where you might be able to buy some inexpensive costume jewelry, some cheap pieces of whatnot, and you could also really buy put a down payment on a new home on some piece of jewelry at a store. But then again, that's also that same mode of store. It's not even shopping in the right stores, if you will. That air quote about luxury brands. There was also some interesting conversation in one of the podcasts I was listening to from VinePair, where they were talking about the Somme bubble, the effect that our current economy has had on that, and the fact that I think that sommeliers and their role that has been very glamorized in the last 10, 15 years, and how it's going to be changing. Well, I think that the idea that it got so popular, et cetera, was a bubble in its own right. That's one of those things where just because it is chic and cool and slick, people wanted to throw that around. You see these small, tiny restaurants that happen to have a sommelier on staff, and I'm like, that doesn't seem very business viable, when you think about it in the long run. But the interesting conversation was the maintenance of the concept of the luxury brand, specifically around the Court of Master Sommeliers, which that's where I was certified as a sommelier, and the idea of maintaining a forced scarcity of this rarity of product. Is a very interesting topic, and it really got me thinking about luxury in the business overall, about how the forced scarcity and is really something that drives any kind of luxury brand. Tell a completely unrelated topic, but I think probably something that stuck in the back of my mind. reading a thing on Reddit the other day about how Louis Vuitton at the end of the year they burn all of their bags. They burn them so that they don't get out on a secondary market and create a inexpensive last year's model type of thing, and how absurd that struck me. I mean, it reminded me of time when I was in high school. A friend of mine's girlfriend worked at a bookstore, and she explained that when they were taking the books out, how they would tear they could keep anything they want, but they would tear off the covers of the books to keep them from being repurposed, resold, etc. And I'm like, how wasteful that concept is, and how in the wine world there's a lot of similar thing. And not that we're pouring out wine when it goes to last year's model. It's not a direct application, but it certainly is when we talk about stuff like forced scarcity. Like, we're only going to produce this much of this stuff. Now, in some cases, only so much can be made. I mean, when you look at the very tip of the pyramid of the elite, there's only so much juice to go around. And therefore, the demand is high, the juice is low, prices do what they're going to do, and they get to absurd levels. Like I said, I encourage you guys to go watch Sour Grapes and learn a little bit about the whole concept of wines at auction and all that kind of thing. The Domaine Romani Conti and all of its ilk. So with that said, don't get me wrong, that we all like to live the good life. I mean, it is awesome to experience these expensive and luxurious things, and there's a lot in the wine world that goes towards that. But that shouldn't be the only place that wine is. For many, many years, and still in modern day parlance, wine is a grocery. Wine is part of everyday life, and it should and always will remain so. In America, we have a very interesting wine history because of our geographic differences, because of our experience with prohibition, because of the lasting effects and lingering effects of that. We don't have that table wine market that many, many countries have. And that's kind of bad. That's kind of the unfortunate part, because when we've scaled up our economy in the modern industrial world, when instead of getting good, you don't have good local craft wine like you do with, say, like good local craft beer, because it's an agricultural product that relies on your locality, whereas beer can be made pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, you can make beer with your own water in your own area and do something unique and cool. So I'm a big champion of grocery store access, right? And this, what I mean when I say that is grocery store level access is having reliable availability of a quality products across a range of reasonable price. I'm a big champion for right sizing, for wine, finding out what your wine budget is and spending the best amount of money to get the quality that you can. Because if the simple concept is just to get the more for your value, then just like any other product, find the cheap stuff, it'll do the job, go right ahead. But I guarantee you that once you start getting past that moment, when you start going into the experiential side of things, you're going to find that where the worth it line is for you, right? So, my other thing to my wine producers is not to cut corners to cut price, right? This is the cheating model I talk about. These are these poorly made table level wines that in the U.S. are the bane of our wine hump. There's this giant cliff of just poorly made plunk that's a dividing line between that next level up of this is craftsmanship and this is actually a good product. And unfortunately, it's hard to overcome that. But the other part is that there's so much marketing. I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. Just the marketing pressures and the marketing angles, the Madison Avenue thing is just so overwhelming and really not designed to help you get better at this. And so, especially when we talk about image sales, right? With that, the whole idea of experiential / image brands, where the whole idea is just simply to be seen drinking this thing, or it is because it's in and what's hip and what's cool. So, in my personal experience, outside of, say, Dave Finney and the kind of his labels and brands, especially, say, Orange Swift. Again, they're very avant-garde, very edgy, and that's very much his style. But outside of that, if you look at my cellar and the stuff that I usually keep mostly on hand, outside of a very few specific wineries that I'm fans of because I've been to, most of the wines that I tend to purchase are very grounded, very real politique, real people brand wines. They're not being really crazy, all flashy and trying to impress me with their marketing, because to me, I'm at a level, and I want you guys to be too, where you appreciate that the way to impress me is show me what's in the bottle, right? The inside that label of who you are on the inside is what matters, and that's really a big thing. I mean, I'm very wary of the cult and the whole cult wine process, which dovetails into my next topic, which is the stereotype of snobbery and wine snobbery and how much I hate it. Definition, right here, which is really actually was interesting in helping me think about this piece. A person with an exaggerated respect for high social position or wealth who seeks to associate with social superiors and dislikes people or activities regarded as lower class. The definition of snob. An alternate definition being a person who believes that their taste in a particular area are superior to those of other people. And I can't say how perfect that is, because to be my anti-customer. I joke about snob being easier to spell than connoisseur. Those of you who've been in my shows may have heard that, but and I use that as a self-deprecating and self-descriptive word. But I gotta say, those two primary things in those statements that to unpack that is really what I want to attack as a stereotype and break down that wall. And the second one being first is the idea of any person who believes that their tastes are superior to others. That I just did a whole video last week talking about the art of wine, the personalization, tastes, all that kind of thing. And it's something that is a subjective appreciation point when it comes to the sensual nature of wine. And you're going to enjoy it in your own way. And nobody should tell you, myself included, what's right or what's wrong about that. But on the flip side, there is the idea of the practical learning and the increasing of knowledge. That's a separate concept. In other words, I don't want you to stick to just finding that one wine that you like and you think is awesome, and then just staying there. I want you to keep expanding that world. But to that first definition, the exaggerated respect for high social position, this comes into that concept of idolization, and oftentimes not even people within the wine world, not the winemakers, although certain folks will definitely get into that cult of personality thing where they follow a winemaker or a wine brand, and it's all about that. But really, just the idea that it is exaggerated, that thinking that the average Joe level wine that you can get at your grocery store or local wine shop, or because they're a national brand, that those aren't good enough. Right? That it's all about the exclusivity. It's all about where you got this from and whether you're on their club list or have this. It's one of the things that, while those wines can be amazing and good, I don't use them in my educational programs or in my shows, because the one thing I'm not here to do is to try and get you hooked on wines you can't get. I mean, that whole idea of exclusivity is the number one counter to what WineShark is all about. It's the poison in snobbery, because it basically says you can't have that excluding nature. And I want you to get to know wine, to fall in love with wine, to feel confident about your world of wine and your wine knowledge, and to try more. And that it's always been built on the ground up in inclusivity. So I just be wary of that. Be mindful of that, because you're going to see it. I mean, I see it in my shows, all the time. And it's one of those is how I have what tack I need to take as an educator to keep that snobbery in check, right? Either whether I find myself slipping into it in certain ways or in ways and modes, but most importantly, recognizing it in clients and helping them, identify that, realize how negative that can be to their wine experience. Because that, by the way, is the heart of the I only drink crowd. Right, well, I only drink this because blah, blah, blah. Could be a grape type, could be a wine brand, could be whatever. Those are like my three least favorite words in the world of wine, because it shows narrow-mindedness. And the weird part is that kind of just tracks to my overall life view, but still, love and work in the same thing. But let's also just talk about the industry and predatory marketing for a bit. That is one of the biggest challenges to overcome, and probably where a lot of the advocacy and the stuff that I do comes from. The snake oil level marketing that has always known me. I've been a part of the marketing world my professional adult life, and it is one of the things where I want products and people and services to have access to the customers that want, and making that connection is what is required of marketing. It's about making awareness. But when it comes to the negative side of the sale, of the anything to get you to spend your dollar, that's a really big sore point with me. And especially in the wine world where we're combining my professional life and my and passion, it comes to things where the types of things that are being used to sell you particularly aggravate me. We're talking about stuff, for instance, there was a Vine Compare podcast that I listened to talking about clean wines or a push toward organic wines. I've seen wines labeled as dry or sugar-free wines, low carbs, and even vegan wines. And again, the joke here to me is like Tito's vodka putting gluten free on its label. Well, yeah, of course it's gluten free. There wasn't any gluten to begin with. It wasn't like it was specially treated to make it safer. It doesn't imply that other vodkas have gluten, but that's the thing. It's that implication. And there's this, especially in the whole clean wine movement, right? This is this idea that you don't know what's in your wine glass. You don't know what's in that bottle. And if you're not drinking this wine that's labeled clean, then you're polluting your body. And it's such a load of bullshit. I mean, I can't stand the fact that the claims have no foundation in any scientific fact. They don't have any claim in any marketing fact. They don't have anything that they can put on a label, even as a common language. The word organic, for instance, I am not against organic farming practices. They've been a part of the wine world for hundreds of years. Okay. It's not like organic is new to wine. And if you want to slap a label on that says we are an organic wine because you think that'll separate you from your competition, I get that you were trying to use that as a marketing advantage. However, what does it mean? Is it just something you made up? Does it actually come with a qualification? Generally speaking, no, it doesn't. And that, by the way, is one of its weaknesses. It's the same thing you do when you look at the produce at the store. This one's grown organically. I'm like, well, does that imply that the other ones are just chock full of pesticides? Or it's and by the way, just because you stick a sticker on it doesn't give you any certifying body that's making sure and checking up on you. And you just say it was organic. You could say it was harvested by virgins for all I care, and how, who's going and checking. So the idea of these types of things, that wine, generally speaking, already has a lot of the features that they're trying to sell you on. Low carb and sugar free. Well, yeah, dry wines have so little residual sugar that we can't taste it. And that's exactly what we mean. So they're sugar free by freaking design. Okay. Slapping a sugar free label on it and making you feel good about like it's not suddenly part of your diet is just asshole marketing. Right? It's just wrong. And that idea that, there is this presumed level of ignorance that the winemakers and wine marketers give towards you, the consumer. When I was looking for the grocery store I grabbed this week, I'm looking through the shelves at my grocery store, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to pick. First, just kind of in stylistically speaking, but then once I dialed in and said, okay, I'm going to do a midweight red this week. I started looking around and I started reading a few labels and turned down several options simply because their labels refused to tell me anything. Their labels were all about they were all about information that didn't tell me anything about what was in the bottle, or required an nth level degree of knowledge about what that implied. Talking to me about the beautiful Willamette Valley and why it's good for growing grapes is nice, but that doesn't mean that your grapes are somehow superior to anybody else's grapes in Willamette. And what the hell does your wine taste like, by the way? So, there's a whole lack of education because I'm not sure whether people are worried in the industry are worried about their educating yourselves out of their own product, that if they keep you, if they keep you in the dark and keep you fed, that they can maintain that level of sale, that you won't ask questions because you're just one of those consumers who just wants to get drunk and quaff wine and have a good time. And the weird part is that they're desperately trying to build brand loyalty into that so that you don't wander off the ranch, so to speak. Well, yeah. This also goes along with the concept of things like celebrity endorsements. Oh my God, we started on the idea that that's a lot of where that marketing technique and such comes from. And while I love George Clooney, for instance, a couple of years back, 4 years ago or so, when he started his own tequila brand, basically claiming that it didn't give you hangovers because of its purity, everybody looked at that like it was some sort of fascinating marketing statement, which had zero basis in reality. I mean, it just doesn't. But doesn't matter. It's one of those, you can't prove that I'm wrong, so I must be right kind of mentalities. And we're seeing a lot of that in the wine world too, especially in regards to the clean wine movement. Now, I want to make a brief aside here, though, that this is different than the things like natural wine and sustainable farming, etc. So, to use examples, we've talked before about things of like certified sustainability. um, Love Block by Kim Crawford, right, is a vegan, organic, sustainable winery. They choose methods of farming that do that, and they're doing it because they think it makes their wine better. They're not necessarily doing it saying, "Hey, if we don't use, organic gelatins in our clarification process, then we can call ourselves vegan and therefore we'll sell more wine." They just do it because that's the way that they want to make their wine, and that is a different story. That's, certified sustainability, like the Lodi rules, are perfect examples of good, smart, you know community slash civic minded and responsible farming techniques. You want the land to be here, the generations to follow, and so therefore you pay attention to what you're doing and how you're farming it, and you do it the best you can. You leave the land better than when you started. That is a great mindset, in my opinion. And again, those things come along with sets of rules that say, this is the thing, and here's the certifying body that's checking out and making sure you're playing. You don't just get to slap a label on, right? It's not just a sticker and a buzzword. Um, Same thing with natural wines, which became popular in the last few years. Now, natural wines are a style of wine making that is kind of a back to basics methodology. Um, and again, this was very divisive in the wine world because, in some cases, what we're talking about is the way that people simply choose to make their wine because they want to experiment with a new way of doing things, as opposed to wines that want to sell you wine as natural because clearly it's superior for all these following reasons to that regular industrial wine that you've been drinking. And then that's a complete crock, right? That's the point where it's like, no, 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 no. Yeah, I understand if you want to do no inoculation, no sulfite added, turbid wine with high acetic acid in it. If that's your jam, go right on, right? It's like liking sour beers in the beer world. If that's your jam, get on it, right? But don't call it a comeback. It's been here for years, kind of thing. So shout out to our boys from LL Cool J. So anyway, there's another one. The war on sulfites. Oh my God. I've gone off on this several times in classes, but sulfites don't give you headaches. You're not allergic to them, generally speaking, because you are not, although there are sulfite allergies out there and they're quite serious. Trust me, if you had a sulfite allergy, you'd know it. And the idea of it containing no sulfite and making because it's a natural produced wine with low sulfur wines is not a thing. I mean, they're trying to get you scared of stuff on the box that they figure if they take it away, that you're going to make a choice to buy it. And that's unfortunate because that type of marketing is just disingenuous from the get-go. So, all right. Where are we? We're almost at the halfway point. I want to talk about, I think I'm going to save the rest of that topic for a little bit later. We're going to talk about, because we talked about predatory marketing and all that. I mean, my thing for you guys, that last thing, of course, is to be label wary and label critical, to become a label reader in wine and help you bridge that along with your just ongoing education into wine styles and regions and things like that. But to be very hard on the labels. If you're going to go outside the box, you're going to try something new, I want you to be critical and judge those wines based on those labels, because that's the way that you can reward those folks that are transparent, that do want you to know what's in the bottle. That's a good thing. And I think it's really the only way we can make that kind of change. There's always going to be the cool, artsy, makes you giggle, extreme wine thing. I bought it because it had a pony on it. Okay, cool. I get it. But that's, as we've talked about it in the past as well, that isn't a great strategy for learning, and not even really, I would say, a great strategy for finding good new wines, because it's more like, putting $10 on hard 8 and hoping that the streak don't run out. Yeah, sometimes it pays off, but it's just as likely not to. And replicating it is an expensive / inefficient way to find great new wines. So Rob does not like sour beers, apparently. So I mean, there's a place and a time, man. I mean, just like everything else, they're not my favorites, but stylistically speaking, that's one of those things that goes along throughout the wine and beer world. So tune in. In fact, so tomorrow I'm gonna save the rest of this. I want to talk about I'm gonna talk about in the video tomorrow, but about talking in a new language about wine. I watched a great video by Sam Vivant, and I'm gonna expound on some of the stuff on that and take my personal take on stuff. So in the end, like I said, you guys when you get down, what are your thoughts? What are your experiences with snobbery and marketing and being trapped and breaking out of it? Changing your habits, or how do you approach it with other people? I want to learn from you guys. I want to know from that back and forth about where you are in that wine journey. How do you describe yourself when you talk about where you are in your wine journey? Those are some critical things for me to be of service to you, so that I can help you in the right way, because I don't want to spend time talking to you that is below a level that you are, nor above the level that you are, because either side, we're wasting time. So, pardon me. Sour beers are Reba's jam, apparently. So although the circus label is what led me to Michael David. Oh yeah, again, I'm not saying that labeling doesn't attract your attention, but nothing on that circus label said this will make you stronger, better in bed, and clearly a circus freak. I don't know. Maybe it does say that on the label. That'd be kind of cool. I'm gonna throw that so I will throw that to the Phillips brothers if I get a chance to meet them again. It'd be awesome. So yeah, so still learning. Yeah, Barbara talking about and I think we all always are. I mean, the best thing to be in life, I think, is is still learning, and that's knowing where you are, what you likes, being able to describe those things in good wine language. And we're going to talk. I said that's what that other video will be about. We'll talk about using different language, experiential concepts, things like that. And when we talk just about the fun of this stuff, because it's real easy to get wrapped up in the science and the education and the learning and the nitty gritty. As I spoke in last week's video about that, there is that part where at the bottom line here, this is something enjoyable, something that we do for pleasure, right? Which puts it in an interesting niche in our lives. That's that other part where, as from the grocery thing, it is pleasurable. So therefore, is it a luxury because it is? It's not a necessity part of life. Well, at least for most people, I think. So. All right. Well, we're at about the halfway point, so we'll talk then about we'll get going with, and we'll get on to putting our mouth where our speech is, and talk about the grocery store grab. This week we have the Brick and Vine Pinot Noir, a California Reserve Pinot Noir, vintage 2017. This was $9 at my local grocery store. A list price of $16 before markdown. So a little bit of that grocery store encouragement, making you think that it's highly on sale, but not wildly overpriced. So, Rob, the thing about herein lies the rub. Oftentimes, if you know a good amount about wine and show that knowledge, you're assumed to be a snob. Exactly, Rob. That's one of those problems, is that you get trapped in that snob bubble. And it's a difficult place to be. And I am 100% with you there. Is that, a classic service moment for me, telling people, I'm like, hey, I'm wildly passionate about this stuff. It tends to get me wordy. Feel free to, wave the yellow flag and slow me down at any time if I just keep going on too much, because, talking is my business. But you're right. Knowing to be, just the idea of people have that weird impression of snobbery. And I think that's that negative thing that comes along with wine. It's one of the dangers they're in. So anyhow, right. Grocery store grab. So this was, I said, again, I was telling you earlier about my experiences in trying 4 or 5 different wine labels before arriving at this one, and able to come up with something that was actually worthy of the label program. For those of you that are not familiar with the grocery store premise, we're here to get the best value per dollar for wines found at non-specialty and non-big box retailers. We do this without prior research, based on label knowledge alone. So we're very label focused. We want to make sure that the labels are showing us what's in the bottle so that we get a good idea. We're presuming a minimal or low level of wine knowledge. So that also is why we want good informative labeling to be part of this deal. So, all right. So, Brick and Vine here. No said. So we went on look at the thing. What's in the bottle? Answer: Pinot Noir. They have a nice little separate thing. Says so right on here. and they basically have a bunch of different ranch names where they've got their Pinot Noir sourced from. So this is actually an interesting. Well, it doesn't have a percentage of blend; it's 100% Pinot Noir. It does very specific examples of where this Pinot Noir is coming from, which I thought was very novel. Now the text is wee tiny, but it is there. So they also, they were on the front of the label. They've got where, when it was made, who's making it, what grape it's from. Good quality, 100% front, standard on the front. Here on the back, the Brick and Vine Pinot Noir. Brick and Vine wines are expertly crafted, showcasing the perfect balance of winemaking tradition and contemporary flair. Inspired by modern heritage, our wines provide the perfect complement for a variety of occasions. Bam, marketing paragraph. Standard fare so far. They're allowed. They're allowed those. That's all good. But here's where they start doing the layman's work. A velvety Pinot Noir with a luxurious, soft mouthfeel and a subtle hint of sweetness, supporting well-balanced finish. Pairs well with grilled pork, duck, roasted vegetables, and mushroom dishes. It's got where it is, it's got what it is, it's got who makes it, it's got specificity, it's got flavor words, it's got specific pairings, not generalized one. A plus for Brick and Vine's labeling. This is exactly what I want to see when it comes to a great wine label. And so, totally, totally awesome when it comes to that piece. Now, let's see if they deliver. We usually don't do a full tasting grid on the wines here. We're basically looking to answer three basic questions that a new to wine person would be looking for. Is it well executed? Is it on style? And is it worth the price tag? Are the three questions I really want to answer here. So color wise, it is right on the button when it comes to that cranberry slash ruby color. Very typical of Pinot Noirs. If you didn't know that, you could look at this and go, okay. I mean, it's clear. It's got it's got no bright highlights. All very good. Next, we'll talk about the nose, right? Definitely has that full cherry, nice middle of the road red fruits, a little bit of pomegranate maybe, and it's nice and expressive. Smells very attractive, right? This is one of those easy drinking wines that we're not finding any of those funny aroma compounds that make some people giggle when they talk about them out loud, right? There's not any of that chemical traces that we often talked about could be more difficult wines. This very much tastes like, hey, this smells like fruit. You should put it in your face. Okay. And it carries through with that. It is a classic California what I call hot rod red. Big, bright cherry, little hint of cherry cola there at the very end. Tannins are very much on that velvety, soft capacity, just like it says on the label. You get a nice all the way around your tongue mouthfeel, a bit of bright acidity, makes your mouth water just the tiniest hint, so it's not completely locked out dry. It is dry from the perspective of sugars. It's fully dry red wine. But again, that fruit flavor and the fruit aromas that come with it, those are the things that tell our brain I'm experiencing something sweet. It's one of the things I talk about a lot in trying to understand the fine lines between sweet and dry wines, especially when you're in the transition state, is that a lot of flavor and aroma compounds are usually perceived with other sweet foods, and so our memory attaches sweetness to them. Having a cherry, for instance, or a cherry pie be a sweet experience. When you get that cherry pie mouthfeel in this, your brain's thinking it's sweet, even though if you really listen to what your tongue is telling you, it's not. There's not any sugar there. This is really on point for the style. Gotta say, I mean, for being from some place that is so up and down the range of locations, they put together a really solid Pinot Noir for $9 here. I mean, this is that part where 20 years ago it was really hard. Finding a good under $20 Pinot Noir was difficult. This showcases that modern techniques, really cool winemaking. I don't know. I do wonder whether they're 100% Pinot Noir or not. Remembering that anything over 75% in California of a single grape can be called a single varietal. It's 85%, I think, in Oregon. But understand that this doesn't seem to have any of the this. If there's anything else than this, I'd be surprised. Other wines in that lower category tend to start putting in other types of grapes that help bulk out a very lean Pinot Noir. So this is a great example, I think, of a well ripened, cherry first. This is well executed, 100% on style, and absolutely worth the price tag. Definitely a winner, and something I will definitely consider putting into. It's not complicated. I'll give it that. Again, is it worth the price tag? Absolutely. For a $10 Pinot Noir, this is awesome. But you're not going to tell a whole ton of stories about it. It's not going to turn into a deep and complicated, twisty finish. But it's very nice, very straightforward. Does what it says on the tin, which is really all we can ask for $9, right? We're not. You're definitely getting what you pay for. So. All right, now I wanted to come back to Reba's question. Say what happens in the beer and cocktail world. Just I'm more of an evangelist. Sincerely want everyone to know what I know and takes it all. Exactly, and that is how the struggle that anybody goes through with the passion that they've got, whatever geeky hobby you have, of coming across to a layman or somebody who's just getting into it and giving them that delivery of facts at the level that they're ready for. Right. And that's why I say it's so important for me to understand you guys as my customers, as the people that I serve, that where you are on that journey helps me understand what language I can use, for instance. Right. I mean, if I start talking about tannins to somebody that's brand new to wine, I'm talking over their head, and it's not good it's not good for me to have them have to raise their hand and go, I don't know what tannins means. And that whole idea. Whereas once I know that you've got these root things under your wheels, now we can go start talking about some of these other parts, because it's a foundational building block system like any other piece of knowledge, right? We got to know how the broad stuff works before we get into the gritty details. But we can always talk about the experiential and subjective parts, which is awesome. So, yeah, and so that idea of sharing of ideas and believe me, that is one of those other fun things I think that goes along with the culture of wine, and that whole idea of being of sitting around and being social and enjoying a glass of wine, not just as a accompaniment to food, but as the truly enjoyment and discussion of the beverage or of any other topic of ye choice. Right? It's that social lubricant that goes a long way towards helping people have great ideas and just being able to discuss things. And again, whether it's ideas about the beverage itself or whether it's about other ideas, it can be a fantastic experience, I think, all the way around. So, awesome. Anybody else? So, other questions? So, what about? I said I think we've all experienced some degree of snobbery in our lives, and especially in the world of wine. What about marketing? Have anybody been? Have you guys been burned by marketing? Have you found and saw through it? Did you have a great, an anecdotal tale about anything in that range? I'd certainly love to hear what people's experiences were, whether they either were pleasantly surprised after a bit of marketing or otherwise. Here was an interesting one I got sent the other day, and it is not about wine in marketing actually, it is wine marketing in particular. Let me rephrase that. But basically, I bet you a few of you might have seen these on your social media in the last month or so. But it's get paid £250 to drink wine, right? And you this whole idea of get paid to drink, right? And it's obviously one of those, oh wow, doesn't that sound great kind of things, and that's in theory that's true, but it also one of those, it instantly sniffs like it's too good to be true. Well, it's because it is. What they do is they're putting everybody into a contest, and you're entering by giving them your marketing information, right? You're basically agreeing to have them market to you. One of those lucky winners will win $250 worth a case of their natural wines that they will give to you. What they're doing, I mean, and just like most other marketing things, is one of you is going to win. No, it's not a job. It's a one-time deal. And believe me, the amount of money that they've saved, as opposed to purchasing a list, they've gotten you to opt into their marketing scheme, their marketing services. They're getting a bargain, right? I mean, same thing. I mean, the whole idea of that's the whole plan in marketing. I get it. So, but again, it's the too good to be true part in the long run. So long as you're getting something that you're happy with, that's cool. The weird part is, in that case, most of you aren't. Most of you are just getting nothing out of the deal. Only one person is getting the 250 pounds, 250 quid, and a box of natural wine. Oh joy, because that's a thing. I mean, again, not a fan. I mean, I know it's a legit style. Some people are in it, but that's just I'm a too much of a believer in the refinement of process. I mean, there are some things that need to be done the old ways, but fine wine, generally speaking, is not one of them. So I like the fact that my wine's clarified. I like the fact that they use hygiene. I mean, is that asking too much? I don't know. All right. So yeah, coming up soon. Things that are on the tasting menu. So like I said, tomorrow, video about we're going to talk about emotional and experiential connections with wine. Why those things occur, how they occur, finding common language. A really interesting topic of just, because the video that I watched by Sam Vivant, I highly recommend you. I will link it and you guys go watch it. Just watch her channel. She's awesome. But the idea is it was very interesting to me. I like, and it's a very catchy title of describing wines using no wine words, and that idea appeals to me as an educator. Is that where did we start that conversation? While the end product twisted in a very different direction than that, I did like that concept, and it made me think, okay, how do we start that process when we start doing definitions and establishing vocabulary for common understanding, and how I need to remember those things when it comes to my 101 style platforms, my basic wine education. So, that's tomorrow. Friday, we've got Pinot Noirs in the 20 to 30 range. We're gonna do some way tasty Pinot Noir. We got Willamette. We've got some. I think we did Santa Mar. I don't think we did. We did Central Coast, Santa Margarita. Hang on, let me look real quick. I have the preview calendar in my brain. I don't have the exact wines in my brain memorized or even listed on my notes because I wasn't planning on doing that. But here we find ourselves. Then next week after that, we're going to do the Smoked Show, another Wine Plus episode with Wine Plus Food. We're going to be making some smoked salmon, some smoked pork bellies, and have wines that go well with smoked foods. Hooray! Very, very fun. And that will probably be one of our first road shows brought to you by some highly awesome fans, assistants, and guest stars of the show. So we're going to try Burgundy. We're going to try New Zealand, and we're going to try Willamette. So those are our three areas for Pinot Noir. Then after that, the rest of August is starting to come together. We have after the Smoke Show, we're going to do Pinot Grigio, then Wine and Cheese, and then we'll do exotic lighter whites at the end of August. So lots of fun in that realm coming soon to a video cast and a Zoom meeting near you. And I encourage you guys to join us. Anyhow, any other questions? It's your time now. Everybody's too busy drinking. I can appreciate this. And that's all right. I find it perfectly acceptable if you are stunned to silence and or unwilling to contribute. One of these things is true. So, all right. Well, that, like I said, then we will move right along. There's no reason for us to truly draw the show out to an hour just because it's an hour. But I'll tell you, get back on there with those comments. I much appreciate you guys doing so. Apparently, YouTube wasn't alerting me to comments that were coming onto the channel, and I just thought I was lonely. But no, the good news is you guys have been making fun comments, and I've been trying to catch up on that. So do me a favor, make those comments down below, ask those longer questions for posterity longevity. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and share with a wine-loving friend. We're really trying to grow up the channel and get more people involved. So every bit of sharing and caring is awesome. So if you really like what we're doing, check us out on Patreon. My Patreon folks, I'm going to be doing some fun announcements over there too. Working on some different content plans to kind of replace some of the stuff that hasn't been really well received, and try and get some more interactive feedback and stuff going there too. We do have new wine selections coming up for the fall, so look forward to that. My Patreons help guide what types of wines you're going to see in the Wine Style shows. So if you want to have a hand in making those choices to get your favorite types on board, it's a great way to contribute. So Barbara had a question. Said Pitt, take another drink. It's true. Pinot Noir from last Friday. No, last Friday we had Gamay. We had Beaujolais, specifically from not Morgon. Morgon's coming up. We had from Bruy. That was our lovely little Gamay. That was part of the wine and chaise, or the picnic wines show, which was a lot of fun, by the way. That was great. And now all I need to do is arrange a picnic. Oh, and a huge shout out to HEB's Central Market for their marketing department this week. They're having what they call Shark Week, but that's spelled CHARC, as in short for charcuterie. And I never did that homophone pun before, but it's freaking awesome. There are some fun things on the charcuterie board. So yours truly may be over there rating their cheese counter and finding out what's going on in the deli section for some fantastic dried, cured, and seasoned meats. Hooray! Yeah, exactly. So I thought that caught my attention, and they used a little shark in the logo. I mean, the folks at Central Market have a special place in my heart. I mean, not just because they give great food, but also because they're clever about it to boot. So, bravo, Howard Edward Butts. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you guys once again. I have been your WineShark, and I appreciate all of your support, all of your views, all of your comments and questions. I hope you guys are enjoying a glass of wine out there on your own, and we will see you here pretty soon. And so until next time, I've been your WineShark. Cheers. And scene. Ready? Scene.